Hello and welcome to Kitchen Table Talks. My name is Toni Austin Allen and I am here with Dr. Roy Austin, author of Definitions for Living, a book dedicated to helping you live more effectively and happily, both personally and in your relationships with others. A number of years ago, Dr. Austin compiled numerous articles which he had written to assist his clients into what is now his book, Definitions for Living, making sense of words and ideas that define our lives. Recently, he and I began sitting at our kitchen table and talking about his book, and we became excited about the possibility of sharing our conversations with others who might benefit from them. The podcast you are about to listen to are the product of the recordings we began making of our conversations. We have discussed the book chapter by chapter and have produced this series of podcasts to accompany the printed version of the book, which is now available as an ebook on various publishing websites. Although we believe you will benefit greatly from the podcasts themselves, you will get the most out of them by purchasing the book, reading each chapter prior to listening to the podcast, and having it available to follow along with our conversations. The ebook is available on Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Scribe, Booktopia, Apple Books, Layman's, and Adlibris. We hope you enjoy our talks at our kitchen table as much as we have, and that your life will be greatly enriched by having shared our conversations with us.
Okay, we're at Chapter 9, the deserve system versus the desire system. Now, when I think of my life, I think most of what I learned was the deserve system. In school, report cards, piano lessons, competitions. And then as I became a teacher and watched my students through the decades, I think the deserve system is really going strong these days. So this is going to be an interesting chapter to really look at how that works, a good way for that to work if we choose to use it, and then really find out what the desire system is and how we really look at that and how that can change our lives.
This is an important topic, Toni. Here again, at first blush, most people who read this may think, well, this I never thought about this before, and it doesn't make sense that it would be in a book on effective living. I mean, deserve system, desire system, what's that all about? But in my practice over the years, these issues kept coming up over and over again in all kinds of subtle and not so subtle ways that it did, in fact, lead me to write this to help my clients understand that our culture is deeply embedded and invested in particularly the deserve system. And so many of my clients were struggling with this because I heard it in all kinds of expressions of, it could go to either extreme. I don't deserve something, or I don't have the right to, or different ways of expressing it. All to the other opposite extreme is that I deserve whatever I want, and I'm angry because I don't get it. So it can go to either extreme.
Boy, just to interrupt there, I have seen extreme examples from I don't deserve to be happy, I don't deserve to really even be alive, all the way to I deserve whatever I want and I'm going to have it no matter what. I mean, we're seeing it in spades these days.
Yes, and it often goes to these extremes, and it causes a lot of difficulty with people. On the I don't deserve, it creates a lot of guilt and shame. And on the I do deserve, which we know as a sense of entitlement, and I came to understand and realize that in the particularly the last decade of my practice as a therapist, it became more and more obvious that the sense of entitlement was a main, and continues to be, a main theme throughout our culture and our society. I was just thinking a few minutes ago, Tony, how the advertising world takes advantage of this concept of deserve. One of the most common ones was this fast food chain that has used this enticement very successfully for decades now, and they came up with a neat little jingle that says, "You deserve a break today." And they bombarded the television airways with this little jingle, "If you deserve a break today." And then when you listen to or watch television commercials, the idea of deserving is a very powerful selling incentive. Is that the whoever's selling whatever, it would be a car or cosmetics or anything, that the whole idea is you deserve this, you should have this, don't deprive yourself of this. And it is a real fishhook type experience for people watching that. They say, "Oh, great, this is wonderful. They say I deserve it. Well, then I'm going to have it." And they run down and buy whatever they get because they feel a sense of entitlement to it, because the advertiser said, "You deserve this fine automobile," or "You deserve whatever it is they're selling." And so the advertising world uses this idea of deserve very successfully.
On the flip side, what I've also experienced is, especially as a teacher, what is the climbing growth of perfectionism in our newer generations, where they don't deserve, they have felt like, when I had my students, they would feel like they didn't deserve to be happy with the performance or to get this award because they made a mistake. They were taught that you could only deserve to feel good about themselves if they were perfect.
That's the other extreme.
Yeah.
It is. Another example of the deserve system I heard over and over again, and there's been a lot of research done on this, is that a lot of people, particularly men, feel like they do not deserve to do well in life because their father did not do well. He might have been just a laborer or an hourly wage earner or something like that, and didn't succeed very well. And they've actually told me that I really don't feel like I deserve to do better than my father did, because I feel like I'm kind of being untrue to him. I'm making more money to him, and that embarrasses him, and or it would if he were alive. So, they feel a sense of shame about doing well because they're outdoing their father, and that makes them feel disloyal to their father. It's amazing what the research shows up here. So this whole concept of deserve is particularly prevalent in our society. And the desire system we'll get to in a little bit is another topic we'll talk about in just a minute.
Well, I don't think the deserve system is going to go away. I think it is very strong, and I personally have benefited from it. Particularly as a young person, I was pretty motivated by working toward a goal and getting a prize, whether it be an A on my report card, an award for something. But in adult life, I don't use that as much. I find myself using it in little ways. But how can we use the deserve system in a healthy way that will really benefit us?
Well, here again, you pointed out, and I do point out at the first and the last part of this chapter, is that neither of these systems is superior or inferior to the other. They're both really good workable systems. And here again, as I've mentioned in some other chapters previously, the system will work if you know how to work it. So I'm not presenting a value case here is that one is better than the other, because they're both very effective and legitimate systems of getting what we want and feeling good about what we have. But most people don't know how to use a system. And so I pointed out that there is a way, if you're going to use a deserve system or a desire system, to know how to do it. And so I present a few steps with each one of these systems to show you how to do it. So it's not a value judgment type chapter. It's just, it's another how to do it chapter.
And wouldn't it depend a lot on our upbringing and our personalities and what kind of works for us? I think knowing what works for us is a good way to decide, but you have to kind of know how to do it well. Otherwise, you don't know what's the best choice to make.
Right. And we can use both systems anytime we want to. Either system works. And we really do in all of our lives, we do use both systems, but without really knowing how we're doing it or doing it really, really well. And so I pointed out that there are three principles as far as the deserve system that you need to be careful about. And that is, the first one is that you have to have a clear-cut, behaviorally stated criteria by which you can feel deserving of any good things that come your way. And so it's okay to use the deserve system as long as you know how to accomplish that sense of deserving. A lot of people say, well, I don't deserve this. And then I would come back and say, well, would you like to deserve this so that you could feel good about whatever it is you want? And a lot of them look at me like deer in the headlights. They say, well, yeah, I'd like to. Well, do you know how to deserve something? and that's where a lot of them get stuck, because they never really thought about that. And so you have to have a way of doing it. So the first one is decide what you want. And then after you've decided what you want, determine what you will have to do to actually deserve your goal. You have to make it behavioral and measurable with the time orientation to it, hopefully, so that you don't have to think that you're going to have to work forever with an open-ended effort to deserve something. And then...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this can be a material good. It could be, and you say here, a vacation. It could be, playing a game with your family or friends.
Or having a good relationship.
Okay.
There's no joke that particularly so many of us men, we hear, but sometimes it's not much of a joke as it is we take it seriously. And guys sitting around talking about their partners in life, and one of them would say, Sam, you really outmarried yourself.
Yeah, you just don't deserve her at all.
You don't deserve her at all.
Yeah.
And so even a lot of people have a sense of needing to deserve even having a good relationship or being happy or having good health. But they don't know how to do it.
Okay.
That's the point.
Okay.
And then secondly, you have to be in control of whatever you are having to do to obtain your goal. And this is really crucial.
So you've got to figure out what you have to do to deserve it and be able to control that situation.
Yes, a lot of people they will set a goal, but they don't know that one of the most important aspects of goal setting is that you have to have control over the outcome. And so many people will set a goal, but life gets in the way, other people, other priorities, organizations, circumstances that change from time to time can prevent them from accomplishing that goal, and they feel like failures in achieving the goal. So therefore they think therefore if I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do, then I don't deserve whatever it is that I want. So it's you have to be able to control the obtaining of your goal.
Okay. Yeah, so if you've got a goal that is wrapped around the external world agreeing with you. You told me once about a boss you had who was going on a vacation with his family, and he had the entire trip laid out minute to minute to minute to minute to minute. And probably that to have a good vacation, his goal was to make sure he stuck with that schedule. But then his daughter got sick right on the second or third day.
Right.
Blew the whole thing out of the water. I'd be really curious to know if he thought his trip was a failure.
I'm sure he did. Knowing that boss, he would feel like he had really failed to have a good vacation, and he would be frustrated all the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And the same is true in life when we need to feel like we deserve something, and we have to earn that right to deserve it, then we have to be able to earn it. And that we have to have as much control over that earning process as possible.
Okay.
And then thirdly, you'll need to determine a time frame between the earning action and the anticipated reward. How long will, like if I say, if I want to retire, well, I need to deserve to retire. So, how long will I have to work? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? It's just a simple example. So if you have a time frame on it, then when you get to the point of saying, okay, now I have been able to measure it, I now deserve whatever it is I want to have. But if you don't have a time frame on it, you don't know how to measure when you deserve it.
Right. I was just thinking, because we had been talking about this earlier, and I was thinking about this very thing, and I don't use this as much as I used to, this system, but it's kind of fun sometimes to challenge yourself. So I was getting ready this morning, and I've just started this 40-day drumming challenge. Is a meditative drumming challenge. And sometimes you start things like that and you kind of let it go by the wayside, kind of like New Year's resolutions. And I was in there getting ready, and I thought, I want a new shirt. Well, this challenge is 40 days. And I immediately started thinking, okay, 40 days, I want that shirt. And then I went immediately and started looking up the challenge and seeing what they required, and they gave you different levels. And I thought, okay, this is a great way to use a deserve system, because for me, it's kind of fun. And it gives me a time in 40 days. I want to go shopping for a new shirt if I do this.
Right.
It can be very motivational.
Oh, it can be, yes. And also there is another reality that I bring out in the chapter, Tony, and that is the deserve system is a very real way that the world works, both in business and in personal relationships, is that we do have to understand that the world doesn't give us stuff for free. We do have to work for it and earn it and deserve it. The key to this system to make it work well is that in a business relationship, in a personal relationship, what it takes to deserve that relationship. Like if you want a job, you need to find out what you have to do to earn that salary every month. You can't just expect them to pay you that money for poor workmanship. And in the same thing related to a personal relationship. A lot of people have this idea that when I get into a relationship, whatever it is I want from my partner, I deserve to have, regardless of how I treat my partner or regardless of what I bring to the relationship. It's this idea is that if you love me, then you'll just give me whatever I want and I don't have to earn it. But friendships and love relationships, any kind of relationship has to be earned. You do not have the inherent right to be in a good, happy relationship unless you do your part.
It goes back to that nonverbal communication of action. The most important nonverbal communication is what do we do to show that we care?
Yes, you can't just expect another person to enjoy being in your presence if you do not pull your share of the load.
Right.
And treat that person kindly and compassionately, as well as contribute to the relationship. But the key is that in both business and personal relationships, you have to sit down with these people and say, I want to deserve what I'm wanting from this relationship. Let's talk about what I need to do and what you need to do for both of us to have the right to be together. So it's a very legitimate system if you sit down and negotiate it up front rather than just assuming what is or is not required for each of you to deserve having that relationship in the first place.
But as you've talked about in this book, this is a book filled with building blocks because that also requires opening your mouth and kindly and compassionately talking about each other's needs.
Yes.
That's the tricky part right there.
That's the tricky
that
part.
That first step.
Both in business and personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do we want a job and we're scared to say, how much am I going to get? This is ridiculous. Or if you're selling me something, how much is it? We sometimes are worried about that.
That's right.
We're talking 101 information, but we're often scared to approach that. Or, I want to be in a relationship with you, but these are some things that I need, and I know you have some needs. Let's talk about them. How often do we not do that?
We're afraid to do that for fear it will squash the relationship up front before it ever gets started.
Wow.
And then you live to regret it later.
Yeah.
Before we leave the deserve system, it's also very important to understand that, as I indicate in the chapter, Tony, that a lot of people feel like they do or don't deserve whatever it is that they're talking about inherently because of not only what they do, but who they are. And that's really crucial.
Can you talk about that a little bit? That sounds very important.
One of the more common ones that I've faced over and over again in my practice was both men and women feel so undeserving of good things coming their way, whether it's relationship or success or happiness, because of what was done to them as children. And they were abused or neglected or shamed or put down all the time by dysfunctional parents and other people in society. And so they grew up thinking that they were damaged goods, that something was wrong with them, that they were never, ever quite good enough to be loved, to be cared about, to be successful. And sometimes those were very explicit messages that the adults would send to a child, is that you are worthless and undeserving of anything good. And a lot of times they were just implied in the way they were treated. And by the same token, here again at the other extreme, some people believe that they deserve whatever they want because of who they are, either by their family name or their title, or just because I decide arbitrarily that whatever I want, I deserve. And this is often true of people who've been mistreated, or they didn't have a good childhood, or they grew up in poverty or abuse, and then they'll say, well, after the childhood that I have, I deserve to have whatever I want now that I'm an adult, because of something in the past that happened. So on either case, they feel undeserving or deserving based on their history and who they are. And a lot of people get stuck in that, particularly those who feel undeserving of things, because you can't go back and change the past. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, real quickly, one example is this a young lady that came to me who felt like she didn't deserve good things because she felt like she was indeed damaged goods because she had been abused severely as a little girl. And so she thought it made her unlovable, that she was not pure when she got married because she had been abused as a 8 or 9 or 10-year-old girl. And so she felt undeserving, but she couldn't change what happened to her, so she felt like her feeling worthy of anything in life was stuck in concrete because she could not undo what had been done to her. And so I had to work her through the illogical, the irrational thinking that goes with that. In order to deserve something, you have to have something that you can do in the future and not related to the past in order for you to think you deserve it. So that's a tricky one too, when people feel entitled or not entitled to something in life just because of who they are.
Would they be a good candidate for switching their systems? Because it seems like that deserved system or non-deserved system could be so entrenched that by getting out of it completely, or are they able to manipulate to a more centered place with the deserved system?
It can work differently for any given individual. Mm-hmm. Switching systems, getting to the desire system in a moment, often helps that, is to understand that you can inherently believe that you're okay and you deserve to be loved and cared about, or you can work out a way for future activity and behavior to earn the right to have what you want in life. So depending on that person's personality and their philosophy and their theology, you can use either of these systems to get out of that quagmire of helplessness.
I'd like to go on to the desire system if we could. And there's something that seems inherently easier in my mind with the desire system. And I might be wrong about this, but it seems to soften the edges of things a little bit, where we might not set ourselves up so much for failure or the need for perfectionism. Am I on base or off base with that?
I think you're on base, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. The desire system is very simple to understand, but difficult for many people to practice. Here began because they've been reared in this deserve system so much that they think that wanting something and wanting it is good enough for them to have it, assuming they can get it. And so here again, it works with that person's philosophy of life. But often the desire system is so much more simple because it's not something that you have to figure out a way to earn and laboriously go through that process. many times we can say, I want this, and it's not a matter of, in this particular situation, here again, it's a case-by-case basis. I don't have to feel like I deserve it. As a human being, I have the right to want whatever I want, as long as it's not taking it away from someone else.
Not harming others.
It's not harming other people, or violating their rights to have what they want. In other words, I don't have the right to steal from someone else or something like that. But if I want it and I'm willing to do what it takes to get it, then it's okay. And it's not a matter of, in this case, of having to deserve it. It's okay to want something. And a lot of people in their childhood have had what I call, they've had the want kicked out of them. I shared with you earlier about this lady who, when she was a little girl, anytime she wanted something, her parents would say, no, you don't want that, or you shouldn't have that, or we can't afford it, and put that back, or that costs too much. And so she learned early in life not to want anything, because she always got disappointed and was led to believe that she didn't have the right to want something because she was being selfish. And so a lot of people have that sense that wanting something is selfish and it's not a good thing, and so they have to deserve it in order to feel good about having it.
I want to read this paragraph toward the beginning of this section. And this is what I think I was meaning earlier when I said it kind of depends on the person's personality and possibly self-esteem or their own internal motivation in life.
Okay.
First of all, people who use the desire system are more goal-oriented than are the deserve system folks, who are more concerned with what is right, quote unquote, for them to have. To the desire system person, it is not a matter of morals, ethics, or the need to balance the scales. Rather, it is a pragmatic approach by which he decides on a desired goal, and then by experience, learning from others and creative imagination, attempts to get what he wants. So it's a way of just navigating through the world in a almost more fluid way. That's what I meant by softer. It doesn't seem to, if I want that, then I've got to do this. And if I don't do this, and I don't get that. It's basically the same thing, but it seems to soften the edges a little bit.
Yes, it does. That's a good explanation of that, is that, and you're not plagued with this burden of guilt for having something you don't deserve, and you're not plagued with a complicated system of how to figure out how to deserve it. You just figure out how to get it. So it's not a self-esteem problem. It's not a moral problem. It's not an ethical problem, unless there are obviously ethical issues involved. But it does soften it a bit. And you have more freedom just to decide, like, I want to take a vacation, and so in order to do that, I need you to save up money and put it on the calendar and work toward it, and do what I have to do to buy those tickets on the cruise and go and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I noticed that you say several times in this section that it doesn't mean that this person doesn't have morals and ethics, because, like in the workforce, somebody may say, well, I want to be at the top of the heap. And they say, well, what I need to do in that is I need to climb over the backs of everybody in front of me. That's very unethical to me.
Exactly.
And that's not what we're talking about here.
Not at all. No, it doesn't mean that you're an immoral or unethical person to have what you want. You still have the responsibility as an adult to follow the morals and the ethics of the society and the profession, if you're in the profession, to follow ethical standards. But that still gives you the right, many occasions, to still get something just because you want it, as long as it doesn't violate these other basic principles of life.
I think we're going through some difficult times, like in the business world, political world, where unethical behavior is becoming the norm. And I think that's when we really have to listen to our hearts, listen to our bodies, and just go, okay, what can I do to get where I want to go?
As long as I do it ethically and professionally and morally. And here again, a lot of people don't have those moral compasses or gyroscopes within themselves, and so that's a problem for them. To be able to think in those terms, here again they have that sense of entitlement. Is if I want it, I have the right to get it by any means I have to go through to get it. And that's what we are seeing in the corporate world and in politics, is that there's no holds barred. Just get what you want, and that's when it becomes selfish.
Right. Well, let's talk about the principles of the desire system. And how do we do this well, besides just saying this is what I want?
We've already discussed the first principle pretty well, is that it is a goal-oriented system. And what you do is you set the goal, and then you back it up and figure out how to achieve that goal, rather than being burdened by the sense of having to deserve it. The second principle I mentioned is important to remember when using the desire system. It does not normally work well in the business world or in personal relationships, about which we've spoken
for this reason.
For this particular reason. And so you do have to use the deserve system when it comes to that. We do have to earn a lot in the world. But in this case, as long as it's not related to these business or personal relationships, if I want to buy a new car or go down and buy a new pair of running shoes, it's okay for me to get my car and go down and buy a pair of running shoes without having to think it through. Do I deserve these shoes? I don't have to deserve it. I want them and I like them, and I'm going to go get some. So it takes a lot of burden out of trying to figure out that if we deserve everything that we get.
So what you're saying is the desire system is about simply saying, I'm a human being, and it's okay for me to want things and to live my life well, as long as I can do them in the parameters of being ethical and moral, stay within my financial means, make sure I'm not harming others, I'm not being irresponsible.
And so sort of in concluding all of this, what I'm saying here is that both systems are good systems. We just need to be cognizant that they do exist, and that we need to know which system we're using on any given situation that we're dealing with. And if we are going to feel like we need to deserve something, then figure out a way that we can legitimately earn the right to have something or be something. And like they say, plan your work and then work your plan. So you can deserve it, rather than saying, I wish I could deserve this, but I don't know how to do it. Or saying, I don't deserve this because of something in the past and there's nothing I can do about it. And so you don't need to be stuck with not deserving something just because of something in the past. You figure out a way to deserve it in the future. And so it works for you as long as you know how to work it.
I like what you say here. It says, finally, you must be careful to limit your desires to what you can realistically achieve. And I think that's a really important statement, because if you start living in a fantasy world, and you want, that's not to say you can't think big, but I have seen in with a lot of the world today, if your desires are too big, you may very well feel like a failure, or you may very well start being unethical and immoral, so you can get what you want.
Excellent point. And I do mention this old cliche here, anything that can be conceived can be achieved. That's so unrealistic, it's just stupid. We can conceive of a lot of things that we want, or what we want to do or want to accomplish. That doesn't mean it can be achieved. We do have to be realistic, as you said, and not overload ourselves with unrealistic goals where we don't have the time or the energy or the money to accomplish. We can't do everything and have everything in the world just because we want it. So it does have to be realistic, and that is the third principle of the desire system. Don't overdo it, and don't dig a hole for yourself that you can't get out of.
Yeah. I'd like to conclude this talk, if I could, and you can add on to it, but this last little paragraph, if you don't mind if I read it, because I think it's good. As a final reminder, these two systems are not necessarily contradictory or incompatible. You can choose to use whichever one you feel is appropriate at any given time. On occasion, you may even be able to satisfy both systems at the same time. However, not to know which system you are using to get what you want can be frustrating and confusing. Either system can be effective in helping you work toward your goals so long as you know which one you are using and you use it correctly.
And that's the key, is to be knowledgeable about how to achieve what you want and to have what you want and enjoy it. If you're going to use the deserve system, I need to deserve this, that's fine, but learn how to do it by following these basic principles so you don't feel stuck and saying, well, I like to have it, but I don't know how, I don't believe I deserve it, and I don't know how to undo that knot that I feel stuck with. But if you're going to use the desire system, that's well and good, so long as you say, I'm not going to feel like I need to deserve this. If I want to go on that vacation, I'm going to, and I don't have to worry about deserving it. And I'm just going to save my money up and go and enjoy it. So as long as you know which system you're using, it makes it a lot more simple.
This is all very good information. Again, it's just clarity, and it's understanding how we function. Yeah. Good. We will start Chapter 10, How to Make Demands in a Relationship, next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Again, Dr. Austin's ebook is available on Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Scribd, Booktopia, Apple Books, Layman's, and Adlibris. We look forward to having you join us for our next podcast.